Ladies and gentlemen, Robin Williams.
Robin Williams was best known for his improvisation skills and the wide variety of memorable character voices he created.
10,000 years will give you such a crick in the neck. Hang on a second. Wow!
Williams has been called the funniest person of all time. In the months before his death, Robin Williams became so confused he couldn't remember his lines while filming a movie, as his brain was ambushed by what doctors later identified as an unusually severe case of dementia. Dementia is a chronic or persistent disorder of the mental processes caused by brain disease or injury and marked by memory disorders, personality changes, and impaired reasoning. His wife Susan blamed dementia for her husband's death by suicide in 2014. She later wrote a book titling it The Terrorist Inside My Husband's Brain.
So I'm an emergency medicine resident, so I don't do a whole lot in terms of like treating dementia as a primary cause, but we obviously get a lot of patients who have dementia that come through our ER, and there's can be challenges associated with that in terms for us for like just information gathering from them. A lot of times they're either coming from nursing homes. They might not even know why they're coming to the ER. And if when we call the nursing home back, it might have been a shift change. The folks at the nursing home at that point might know, the basics behind it, but maybe didn't see exactly what was going on to answer some questions. So that can always pose a challenge in terms of like working them up from a diagnostic standpoint whenever you don't have all the information with you. Similarly, we'll have times where they'll come in after a fall or something and there'll be a trauma alert, which means from our standpoint, their name and medical record number aren't actually the thing that pops up. They come under a trauma number instead, so you can't even necessarily access their chart until you get a little bit more information about them, and so that can kind of delay some information gathering. In terms of some social challenges we have too is every once in a while we'll get the patient that they're coming from their nursing facility as well, and for like agitation, that's usually a big one where the folks there will say, hey, those persons, they've just been more agitated than usual. We're not sure what's going on. And it's kind of our job to figure out, is this something like an infection that's causing an acute agitation or delirium, or is this just kind of the natural progression of their disease? And then where to go from there, because a lot of times if they're in a facility that maybe they don't have necessarily a locked unit, or they're not a dementia unit, they're just a normal nursing home, they might not feel comfortable taking the patient back if they're continuing, if they don't have the staffing or anything to kind of appropriately care for them. So all of those can kind of lead towards it being a little bit difficult to get these people where they need to go and where they're going to be safest to go. But, we do our best, and ultimately, after a lot of calling around and everything, can get them where we need them to go.
In the early years, when I was a kid, he was probably, everything you could want from a grandfather. He was a great guy. He always came over on Wednesday nights, big bowler. Always just come over, watch Jeopardy, bring over black and white cookies. Probably why I spent most of my childhood years and a little obese. I think when I was 15, he broke his back, and then that's where everything kind of started going downhill, and that's when 2 years later, I'm pretty sure he got diagnosed with dementia. And then after that, it's just a deteriorating disease where you just slowly lose memories. And his wasn't so bad that he didn't remember, he just couldn't formulate sentences anymore, but he still knew who we are. Every time we'd visit him in the nursing home or anything, he would light up and get a big smile because he knew that that's who we were, and he knew that we were his family and everything else. It hurts not being able to have a conversation with somebody you grew up with and spent all this time with your entire life, and now you just can't even put words into a sentence. Even though he was sick, he still had the same personality. Every time when I was in school and I had a girlfriend, he would always flirt with her. And even if you go to the nursing home, every time a girl would walk by one of the nurses, he would whistle at her, or go like, "Woo, yeah!" He'd be able to get those sentences out pretty easily. His daughters, obviously my mom and my aunts, were most seriously affected by it because, it's their father, and they just watch their father slowly slip away from them, day by day. year by year, moment by moment. It's like he's still there, but you know that he's not there. You know that eventually he's not going to be there, and it's not even like you get to spend like the last few years that he is there with him, because you know he gave that away. Well, dementia took that away.
I have very fond memories of my mom. She was a vibrant, healthy woman her whole life and worked at a job until she was 72, and then worked part-time after that up until her first symptoms of dementia began when she was 88 years old. Early symptoms, anyone who's ever gone through this, you don't relate to them what they are when they're happening. Certain things will happen and you'll consider them strange, but you won't know, oh, my mother is developing dementia. It doesn't work like that. She was 88 and driving home from her job at the cream puff place and missed the turn and didn't know how to get home. So at the time you think, well, you know, you've been driving home from there for a long time, I wonder what happened. Then down the road you look back and say that these are the early stages of things that happen when your brain cells start to deteriorate from the disease. It was a long, slow process. At first she was still able to get around and feed herself. Actually, if you look at it from a certain way, when she was still mobile, it was actually harder for us because we kept her at home, but you had to watch. You had to watch her on the stairs. You had to watch her when she would go near the stove, or if she would go to the refrigerator and leave it open. Then as the disease progressed and she became more and more bedridden, you didn't have those things to worry about. I started reading some books on what happens at the end of life. You know, fascinating reading, but I wanted to be prepared. And sure enough, the home health aide that was there with me that day on a Saturday had to leave at 7 o'clock at night. And I had been off work the whole week because the Monday prior to the Saturday, Mom had stopped eating. And the hospice people told me this is probably nearing the end of the story. I had read that toward the end, the body tries to conserve, it tries to save itself by taking oxygen and blood from the extremities to go toward the core, to try to keep itself going. So sure enough, my mom's fingers and toes were becoming cold and blue. It was sad, but I don't think I was crying. I was talking to her in case she could hear me. We had an oxygen tank there, so I did give her oxygen, and they also allowed me some self-medication of morphine for her. And the hospice woman said, you really can't give her too much, so if you feel she needs it, go ahead. So it was a, you know, drops in the side of her mouth, not any kind of injection or anything. So I was using the morphine. She did not appear to be in any pain whatsoever. And I was sitting with her, and I looked at my watch, and it was 7:30, and she took her last breath. It's an experience. I guess it's one you hope you never have to go through, but it's also one that, you know, you're lucky to be there for a loved one's last moments.